All right, so I want to make a video updating everyone as usual. There's a ton of stuff to talk about today. I got a lot of stuff to talk about, so I'll get into that soon. But getting right into it, Canada's up to 85,112 confirmed cases, 6,456 dead. Alberta is down to 762 active cases, down from, I believe, 801 yesterday, so we're down almost 50 confirmed cases. We had just 19 new cases yesterday. We have 45 people in the hospital. I believe that's the same as yesterday. I believe 5 people in the ICU. Uh, and like I said, the first thing to point out is that I was watching CBC this morning, and they showed that uh, between Quebec and Ontario, there's about, I don't know, 800 or 900 cases yesterday, but for the rest of Canada, there was 34, and I think almost all of those were in Alberta and BC. So the reason why I wanted to bring that up is that it's absolutely insane that the rest of Canada needs to follow almost the exact same guidelines as the other provinces when Quebec and Ontario both have like 20 times as many cases as Alberta, for example. And Alberta has a lot more cases than Saskatchewan or BC. Now, BC, I believe, actually has more dead than Alberta, even though they have much less cases. So that just goes to show that Alberta probably handled it a little better than BC. But I don't really want to debate that too much. But the point being is that why does the rest of Canada have to follow such similar? No, again, if you want to say, yeah, we're going to limit travel, if we do reopen, we want to limit travel into Ontario and or Quebec just to prevent the spread. If you want to do that, go right ahead. But the idea that the rest of the provinces, especially this, Saskatchewans and Manitobas and like even the maritime ones, and especially like the northern ones. Like, why in the world are they not open right now? Like, why in the world? And that's kind of what I wanted to bring up. And then, like I say, the thing that really, really bothers me about the pro lockdown crowd is that they refuse to even acknowledge that there is a downside to keeping things locked down. And if you want to have an actual rational conversation with people, like I always say, I know that the overwhelming majority of people watching this agree with me, but or at least mostly, if you want to have a rational conversation, then the only way that you can do it is to actually be realistic about things, because there's a clear and obvious downside. Even several people that were initially pro lockdown have acknowledged this. And almost every economist will tell you, again, it doesn't take a genius economist. You don't need to have a PhD in economics to know that 30% unemployment is going to be a nightmare, much more of a nightmare. I've heard. I've yet to hear a someone who is an expert in the field. Here's the Like I said, what usually happens is you have doctors who don't know anything about economics who point out, oh yeah, we need to keep things locked down. There's going to be this big second wave, even though there's no evidence of that. But yet they refuse to acknowledge the economic ramifications of it. Again, why are we not bringing in people who are weighing the costs and benefits? Because I don't care who you are. I don't care if you couldn't be any more of an amateur when it comes to your medical knowledge, your economic knowledge. If you're not making a rational cost benefit analysis, then your opinion is meaningless. It's literally meaningless because you're not being rational. And again, I don't care who you could be, the world's foremost epidemiologist. I don't care what your opinion, and I'm not saying that any of these people are doing that necessarily. I mean, there is some, but if you're not telling people, okay, what is your cost benefit analysis? How, and I'll put it this way: how in your mind are you rationalizing 30% unemployment being preferable to a handful of people dying? And the problem with that too is that most of the and this is the thing that bothers me a lot too. Most of the people who are pro lockdown were also people that have defended the federal government this whole time. And the reason why it bothers me is that the federal government, when this whole situation first started a little over 2 months ago, refused to close borders because, oh, it's racist to close borders. Um, Told people don't wear masks if you're sick, which again, both things I said were BS. I was talking about the opposite. Now, both of those things they've turned around and admitted they were wrong on. So saying, oh, you don't get to have an opinion, you're not a doctor. Well, guess what? The professionals who you're taking your advice from just admitted that I've been right all along. So that couldn't be a worse argument. So, like I say, that's what really bothers me is that the people that were pro lockdown were also pro open borders and not wearing masks, which directly led to the amount of spread that we have right now. And so that's basically what I wanted to point out with that. Like I said, the other thing that I wanted to point out is something that I've brought up, but I want to bring up again. Um, why are the provincial governments not telling people, okay, this is what we want things to look like before we're comfortable reopening? Why are they not doing that? Because people have no idea what to expect right now. Everybody's mad. But people on both sides are mad. And if the government just came out and said, hey, in Alberta, we want to get under 500 active cases or 200, whatever the number is, that's what the number we want things to be at for us to comfortably reopen. And if they did that, at least we know what we're dealing with. I think that there's the two most likely reasons, and I think the only reasons that are plausible that they're not doing that is number one, the bar is set so high. In other words, they want to be under 10 active cases. I'm just throwing out a really low number. They want to have like no people in the hospital. They want to have like less than 50 cases or 10 cases, whatever really low number you want to go with. That's when they'll be comfortable reopening. And the other reason too is I think that they're kind of I wouldn't say for sure, but I think it's very distinctly possible that a lot of these governments are hoping for a second wave so then they can justify relocking things down. But that's a different topic in and of itself. The other reason being is that they don't really have a plan. They're just kind of figuring things out as they go. Again, which just goes to show that they're kind of incompetent. And again, I'm including people like the UCP in Alberta and the Conservatives in including Doug Ford in Ontario. I think that both of those provinces have handled things terribly. Now, not for the same reasons that the traditional people that are against them would believe, but nonetheless. So that's what I brought up too. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Why can't the government just tell us this is what we want things to look like, and then we'll be comfortable reopening? It doesn't make any sense. So, people constantly bring up that the experts want to keep things locked down. You're not an expert. Who cares about your opinion? Well, turns out 600 physicians say lockdowns are a mass casualty incident and they want to reopen things. So again, the experts do not agree with the lockdown. Again, you'll have CBC bring on some guy, some epidemiologist, and people just take his opinion for it. People are like, oh yeah, all the experts agree because I seen one guy on CBC. Well, no, that's not the case. That's not the case. And like I say, YouTube has censored several medical professionals and a literal epidemiologist. YouTube has censored them because they disagree. They want to reopen things. So the reason why you think, oh, all the experts think that it should be locked down, yeah, but it's because they're anybody with a dissenting opinion is being censored. They're not put on CBC. They're not allowed on YouTube. I mean, I am, but I'm nothing compared to the people that they've censored. These are people that had videos that had millions of views. So yeah, the experts do not agree. And like I said, this is something that really bothers me too. That one of the infinite things it seems that people keep claiming, oh, the experts think that the lockdown should continue. No, they don't. Most of the ones that want things to continue are the ones that are personally and probably financially benefiting from keeping things locked down. So again, I don't take your opinion seriously when you have a massive incentive to be biased towards one particular side. These doctors, no bias, no bias, because they get paid. Um, they're losing. A lot of them are losing money, but a lot of them are also gaining money in the states that have been harder hit. So it's pretty hard to make the bias claim. Now, this is from Edward Snowden. Now he says, if you ever wonder where we're at on the dystopia scale, consider that it's normal to believe the government is spying on you, and it's crazy to believe they're not. Now again, This is one of the major conspiracy theories that was around in like the 2000s and even the early 2010s. And now it's obvious that everybody knows. Now, again, this is why another reason why I can't stand the term conspiracy theory, that a lot of them turn out to be true. And I'm not saying that I believe in all of them or even most of them, but a lot of them do turn out to be true. Which and the reason why people call them conspiracy theories, it's a term that they can throw out there to that people, the minute they hear conspiracy theory, they think it's just made up. When in reality, it's false because several conspiracies have turned out to be true. I mean, government spying, aliens now, or UFOs, not necessarily aliens. So the idea that they're all made up, and I would say probably 30-40% of them are true. Probably not the majority, but a lot of them are, or maybe at least to some degree, maybe not completely. But that, I mean, the main point here being is that why are we all of a sudden so fine with the government spying on everything we do? Like if you'd have told someone that 20 years ago, they would have thought you're crazy and they wouldn't have gone for it. But now it's a good thing. And this is why that people constantly accuse the people that are pro lockdown of being sheep. Is that you are sheep? You'll do literally anything the government would tell you. You'll let the government spy on you for no reason, just because it's all quote unquote for your safety. Again, you're the kind of people that would have just gladly went along. And again, I hate using this example, but they're the kind of people that would have been, perfectly fine going along with everything that the Nazis did or any of the communist authoritarian, you know, uh, governments did in the past, because they're people that, oh, all governments have to do is convince me it's in my own interest to do this, and I'll gladly do it. That's why these people are so insane. So this is another thing that I've been talking about for a while now, and I believe this tweet's about a week old. So, and he says Georgia reopened 3 weeks ago. Since then, hospitalizations have dropped by a third, and there has been no new deaths since March. So again, and like I say, this is Georgia's been open for a month, and like this is the thing I constantly point out, but people again refuse to acknowledge, and it's because their beliefs aren't based in any form of reality. They just care about being tribal, in that the easiest way to figure out whether or not we should reopen, uh, and how soon, is to look at other places that have reopened and seen, hey, have they had any hiccups along the way? And since the answer to that is no in every case, then why in the world are we not reopening? Why in the world are we not doing it? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And like I say too, like gyms are open in Florida. Like the state of Florida, I believe, is pretty much fully reopened. And yet, have they had mass outbreaks? No. Restaurants have been open in Arizona for weeks now. Again, have they had mass outbreaks? No. No, nowhere has had it. Nowhere. South Dakota never fully closed. The problem is that, like I say, these people are so, they're tribal as can be. Again, they just blindly take the opposite position of you. And number two, they just don't want to admit they're wrong. Like, this is one of the best examples that I can think of, pretty much maybe even in human history, of people's refusal to admit they're wrong, no matter how much evidence piles up against their beliefs. Like, refusal. And people say, well, okay, well, how do you know you're wrong or you would be wrong? Okay, well, how would I know that I would be wrong? Is the places that have reopened have had massive amounts of outbreak, and not just a little bit too. People point out to a place, oh, they had a little bit of an, no. When this whole situation first started, the projections for the states was 2 million dead. They haven't even hit 100,000 yet. And if they and like I say, the numbers are inflated to at least a small degree. For there to justify the lockdowns, the outbreak would have to be much bigger than initial, like much bigger. I mean, take Alberta for example. We peaked at what, 300 cases roughly in a day. We would have to at least hit that to justify locking things down again. And the problem is that we have 20, 30 cases a day, and people are justifying keeping things locked down. So it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. This is from Pierre Poilievre. He said household debt will rise to 200% of disposable income through 2021, says CMHC president at Finance Committee. And this is something that's very concerning. That, I mean, for starters, You constantly hear the climate change people saying, "Oh, we need to get off oil and gas because it's unsustainable. And it's unsustainable. And it's a finite resource." And what the argument they make, and they'll turn around and say that, "Oh, well, if people are maxing out their credit cards, month after month, year after year, that's perfectly sustainable. That's perfectly sustainable." Like these, like the level of insanity of the average person out there is absolutely astounding. So if climate change is this big issue, then why in the world do we accept any debt whatsoever? Like if climate change is this big issue, like I'll put it this way, not caring about debt, whether it's federal, provincial, or personal, especially when it's massive amounts. We're not talking about $1,000 of credit card debt here. We're talking about literally you've been making you maxed out your credit cards and you've been making the minimum payments for years now. Like this is where the federal government is at. Like if you put it to an equivalent on on an individual scale. So if we're worried about things that aren't sustainable, then that should be one of those things really high on our list. And considering the fact that no one who's big on climate change cares about that, just goes to show that they don't care about things that are unsustainable. The reason they care about climate change is that they want socialism, and that's how they'll justify it. So I mean, getting back to this point too, this is something that's really going to hurt people. A lot of people are going to be bankrupt or going to have to drastically cut back spending, and that is going to hurt the economy a lot. And hurting the economy again, people have this misconception: hurting a poor economy only hurts the rich, even though it's pretty much the opposite too. It just goes like I say, like the people that are the opposite, they don't understand pretty much anything because they'll say, "Oh, well, you just want to go back to work to help the corporations," even though most of the big corporations are doing better than ever, and it's the small businesses that are being hurt. Uh, the economy is, I mean, do the rich benefit from a good economy? Yes. But are the rich being hurt right now? No, because guess what? Most people who are quote unquote rich could retire tomorrow and live comfortably the rest of their life. The person who is in the middle class cannot retire tomorrow. That's not how it works. So again, we need to figure this stuff out, and the only way to do it is to reopen. The only way to do it and to cut back spending. So and this is something that's very scary. Business owners could face jail time under Pritzker's new emergency rules. He's the governor of Illinois. And this, like I say, this stuff is insane. Like, why is this? I mean, I know it's in the States, but why is this going on? Like, why is this going on? Like, and this is the thing, too, that most of the anti-lockdown crowd acknowledges that the only reason that these governors and the provinces support keeping things locked down is they just want to try and take as much power as they possibly can. And people, oh, they laugh at that, but yet they turn around and you turn around and you see stuff like this. Like, of course they just want to grab power. Like, it's obvious. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is number of CERB complainants topped number of jobless by a million last month. Stats show. Now, this is the problem with the official government unemployment stats is that they under not through nefarious intentions. It's just they always underestimate the unemployment rate, and that's the problem. Is stats like this just go to show that the number of people actually unemployed is much higher than the official numbers show. And that's the other problem with it too, is that when the government is trying to implementing policy, they're making it based off, I assume, the official unemployment numbers. And the problem with that is that those aren't actually official because they're always underreported. And that's the problem, is that people say, oh, it's 20% unemployment when it's actually 25 or 30. It's 25 when it's actually 30 to 35. And that, like I say, that's the problem. And this is the thing, like I've mentioned before, but I want to keep mentioning because it's so important too. Like this is affecting the lives of millions of people, so it deserves to be repeated enough until the problem is fixed. This is affecting the lives of a lot of people, probably millions of people, and I really don't understand. Like when we come out of this, whenever it is, I mean, if the pro lockdown crowd had their way, it would be for the next year or two. There is going to be massive amounts of unemployment, and you're going to wish that we could go back to this time and reconsider. And like I say, I've said it before, but I'm going to keep saying it, is that this will go down, the people that will go down in the history books as the crazy ones are the people that supported the lockdowns, because they'll be the ones that supported policies that led to the death, led to the starvation of hundreds of millions of people. And like I said, the UN predicts it: 100 million, 200 million, you know, people are going to die of starvation because of this. Are you honestly telling me that the what 5, 6 thousand Canadians that have died from this, their lives are more valuable than the 100 million, largely African, Middle Eastern, people in third world countries that are going to die of this? Because I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. And even if you don't believe that, like I say, you're rather insane if you don't. But like that's crazy. That's crazy. And like I say, I point this stuff out ad nauseum, but it doesn't seem to change a lot of people's minds. But again, I'm going to keep doing it because it definitely is helping a little bit. But what more can I do? But anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. If you like to, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple of things, as always, check me out on Twitter if you haven't already. Again, just got Twitter, so check me out there, and check me out on BitChute as well if you haven't. All the links are in the description, so you can find them all there.